In this Warmaster video we shall take a look at the army of Nippon. Nippon has had its official release in the Warmaster Armies book for 2023. Nippon is a human faction and is clearly inspired by the Japanese samurai culture from our own medieval period. Nipponese society follows a highly structured caste system, with a large underclass of peasantry who support the ruling warrior elite, the samurai. This feudal society allows the samurai to spend their time honing their fighting skills, and their behaviour is governed by a strict martial code, where honour and duty is everything. Nippon is ruled by an emperor, and he in turn is served by many warlords known as Shogun. Each shogun has absolute authority over their own localized domain, where they are served by a clan of fiercely loyal samurai. Localized conflicts between rival clans of samurai are very common in Nippon, as because their sense of honor is so profound, a shogun will have no qualms whatsoever about declaring war on their neighbors over any insult, real or imagined. On the battlefield, rival samurai will seek each other out to engage in personal duels, and this means that for a samurai to survive any length of time, he really must be the best of the best. Consequently, Nipponese armies feature a large number of highly elite warriors, whose preferred tactic is to engage the enemy's most dangerous troops head-on and beat them in close combat. Nippon is an island nation located off the east coast of Cathay, and the Nipponese themselves have little interest in outsiders, which has allowed Nipponese culture to develop in relative isolation from the rest of the world. The geography of Nippon is very mountainous, and the seas surrounding the island are notoriously tempestuous. This has the effect of reducing the avenues for trade, which in turn diminishes the likelihood of foreign culture gaining a foothold on the island. The Nipponese peasant class is engaged primarily with farming and fishing to support the samurai ruling class. However, there is also an artisan class, who produce the finest weapons and armour required by their masters. The daily life of the Nipponese is highly structured and ritualized, and they have little time for magic. Consequently, the magical energy which exists in Nippon is often drawn to the sites of shrines, where the attendant Shugenja dissipate it to prevent any interference with the Nipponese way of life. In times of war, the Shugenja can instead be called upon to harness the magical powers they control and summon otherworldly beings into existence to fight alongside the samurai. The Nippon army list has 10 unit choices and 3 character choices. There are 7 types of infantry, including light infantry, missile infantry, elite medium infantry and heavy infantry. You can field heavy cavalry or chaff cavalry and have access to flying monsters. The character selection is that of an elite army similar to Norse or Chaos. The army has a special rule called Honour and Duty, which means it calculates its withdrawal point as being 1 more than usual. And this reflects the samurai's cultural attitude, where to flee from battle is seen as the ultimate dishonour, and can only be remedied by committing ritual suicide. Your first compulsory infantry choice are Ashiguru, and you must take at least 1 unit per 1,000 points in the army. Ashiguru have the standard light infantry profile found in most human armies in Warmaster. Their battlefield role is to provide cheap support for your other infantry. Due to their low cost, they also help raise the army breakpoint. Ashiguru bowmen are your second infantry choice, and you may take as many units as you wish. They have the standard missile infantry profile common to most human armies. Their battlefield role is to disrupt enemy formations by causing drivebacks and confusion. They are vulnerable to enemy charges, so are best placed in dense terrain, where they will benefit from defended status. Ashiguru Teppo are your third infantry choice, and you may take 2 units per 1,000 points. They are identical to bowmen, except that their shooting attack imposes a -1 armour save penalty on the enemy. So they are a useful pick for the army if you know you're likely to fight against heavily armoured opponents. Samurai are your 4th infantry choice, and you must take 2 units for every 1000 points in the army. Samurai have an elite medium infantry profile, far better than equivalent units in other human armies and on a par with Saurus warriors. Samurai do have a special rule, which means they cannot use initiative to evade, but also roll 1 less dice when driven back by shooting. This rule is effectively points neutral, so samurai are appropriately costed at 80 points a unit. Samurai will form the mainstay of your battle line, more than capable of taking on and beating all but the heaviest of enemy infantry. Their downside means that they are very hard to withdraw from combat once they are engaged. They will literally fight until they defeat the enemy or die trying. Mikata are your 5th infantry choice, and you may take up to 2 units per 1000 points. They have the standard fanatic profile common to many armies in Warmaster, and their special rules mean they must use their initiative to charge the enemy where possible, they must pursue in combat and must advance. They're also immune to terror and can't be driven back by enemy shooting. Mikata can either represent warrior monks from the temples of Nippon, or ronin, who are masterless samurai, eager to redeem a stain upon their honour by sacrificing their lives in battle. Mikata can be employed as a missile screen in front of the rest of your valuable infantry, or they can be placed in column formation on the flanks of your brigades to protect against enemy flank charges. Their high number of attacks and immunity to terror make them especially good at dealing with enemy monsters. Ninja are your 6th infantry choice, and you may take up to 2 units per 1000 points. Ninja are the archetypal infiltrator unit and can be deployed via ambush during the battle. Their ability to ignore the penalty for dense terrain make them especially good at this role. Ninja are best deployed via ambush to harass enemy artillery or missile infantry, and they have a 15 cm 360 degree shooting attack to assist them in this role. Because they only have a light infantry profile, they are best employed in hit and run attacks, leaping out of the shadows to attack the enemy before running back into the cover of dense terrain.
Cowabunga!
Oni are your 7th infantry choice, and they are the first unit of temple demons you may have in the army. You can have a single unit per 1000 points. Oni have the standard heavy infantry profile, identical to ogres, black orcs and rat ogres. They are also immune to terror but suffer from instability. Oni make excellent frontline troops, able to withstand an enemy charge or dig opposing troops out of dense terrain. Their instability can hamper them in protracted fights, however, as they have a tendency to become confused or disappear entirely. Samurai Cavalry are your 1st cavalry choice, and you may take up to 3 units per 1000 points. They have a heavy cavalry profile identical to that of Orc Boar Boys. Like your Samurai Infantry, Samurai Cavalry cannot use their initiative to evade, but also suffer 1 less driveback dice from enemy shooting. Samurai Cavalry have a formidable charge guaranteed to inflict damage on the enemy, but their inability to evade away from enemy and their lower armour value compared to equivalent knights in other armies means that they will suffer in a war of cavalry attrition. Consequently, they are best employed as a flanking strike force. Komainu are your 2nd cavalry choice, and they are a temple demon unit. Komainu are animated temple dog statues, and you may take up to 3 units per 1000 points. They have a chaff cavalry profile identical to that of dire wolves, and like other temple demons they are immune to terror but suffer from instability. Although they gain a bonus attack on the charge, their lack of armour makes them unsuited to engage the enemy head on, so instead they make an excellent backline sweeper unit or a flanking force to accompany your samurai cavalry. Their cheap cost makes them a viable missile screen for more valuable units, or an easy way to boost the army's breakpoint. Tengu are your flying monster choice, and you may take a single unit per 1000 points. They are temple demons, and are therefore immune to terror but suffer from instability. Their profile is identical to that of demon flyers from the demon army list. Although they are monsters, Tengu are based facing the long edge of the base, in the same way as harpies. Their tactical role is harassment. They can be sent behind enemy lines to impose a -1 command penalty, or to hunt war machines and missile infantry. As flyers, their superior mobility allows them to fly over enemy units and then land behind them, so when you charge the enemy, the Tengu will ensure their destruction when the enemy retreat. Bear in mind that Tengu are quite fragile, and once they start to take casualties, instability will make short work of them. The Shogun is the army general, and he has the standard general profile common to most Warmaster armies. In addition, the Shogun has a special rule, which applies to any hero who rolls a blunder when issuing a command. Any hero who blunders subtracts -1 to their roll on the blunder table. This makes it far less likely that the blunder will result in a positive result, and far more likely that the blunder will result in a negative penalty to the unit or brigade. And this represents the shame of a character failing to carry out his Lord and Master's commands. The Daimyo is a standard hero for Warmaster with command 8 and 1 attack in combat, but you are limited to 1 per 1000 points. As with all heroes, their battlefield role is to keep your brigades moving, and he can also be given a magic sword and thrown into combat, hopefully against an enemy character. The Shugenja is your third character choice and also counts as a hero. They have command 8 but no attacks in combat, and you may take 1 per 1000 points. The Shugenja functions the same way as a runesmith in the dwarf army. Their role is to combat enemy magic. Although just as capable of giving orders as a hero, the Shugenja also has a dispel ability which will affect any enemy spells cast within 50 centimeters. The Shugenja also provides temple demon units with a boost when they roll on their instability table. Therefore, a Shugenja is a good choice if you know you're going to be up against enemies that rely on magic, or you pick a lot of temple demons in the army. The Tatsu is a Nipponese dragon, and is the standard terror-causing flying character mount common to many armies in Warmaster. It is 80 points and adds 2 attacks in combat. The Tatsu may not be ridden by a Shugenja, so is the best choice as the mount for a daimyo. The shrine is the mount option available to the Shugenja, and it functions exactly like a dwarf Anvil of Doom. The shrine allows a Shugenja to add +1 to his dispel attempt once per battle, and also allows a Shugenja to make all friendly units within 20 centimeters immune to terror until the start of the Nippon player's following turn, on the roll of a 4+. As it is a special mount, it doesn't restrict the Shugenja's movement in any way. This is a typical balanced Nippon list featuring at least one of every unit type, a terror-causing character, and anti-magic ability. This is another balanced Nippon list written by one of the list authors, with the focus being Shugenjas working in company with the temple demons. This list, also written by one of the army designers, focuses more upon the samurai elements and forgoes any temple demons. This list concept is maximum demons and a strong anti-terror element. While finally this concept list is a historical samurai list, suitable to use if you have a Warmaster Ancients samurai army. So why would you choose to play Nippon? Well, if you're a fan of Japanese culture, you may find the aesthetic of the army very appealing. You may also already own a Warmaster Ancient Samurai army, which is entirely playable as the Warmaster Fantasy list. If you're a fan of the Total War computer game series, then you might want to recreate the Sendoku Jidai at 10mm scale. Alternatively, you may wish to have an ultimate battle of the fanboys and pit your samurai army against the Wood Elves. You may be attracted to the samurai army's rules: anti-magic, anti-terror, very elite but with a good breakpoint, and certainly on paper the army appears to be very strong. The list is also unique in that it is a combination of human and demon units, so this provides you with an excellent modelling opportunity if you wish to recreate the forces of an evil shogun and his demonic allies. A key strength of the Nippon army is the elite status of its troops, with stat lines that most other human armies can only dream of. Nippon also has a great variety of infantry types, equal to that of the Skaven, which give you access to a large number of different viable builds, to keep your opponent guessing what you'll bring to the table. The army special rule means that should you focus only on the elite aspects of your army, your breakpoint is still going to be relatively high, so this makes the army quite forgiving. and allows you to stage a late game comeback should things go against you in the early game. You also have access to many troop types which are immune to terror, as well as the Shrine, which provides all your troops within 20 centimeters terror immunity. Now this ability, combined with your numerous high attack units in the army, makes for a very powerful combination, allowing you to deal a lot of damage against the enemy which they cannot mitigate. In the same manner as Dwarf Runesmiths, your Shugenja can shut down enemy magic, so if you face enemies that rely on their magic to keep their armies going, you're at an advantage. And you also have access to Flyers, which are ideal for shutting down enemy artillery and causing general mischief. A key weakness of the Nippon army is the fact that it has no artillery and therefore no way to project force across the battlefield early on and force the enemy to come to you. And with the only armour piercing in the army being the Ashiguru Teppo, you may struggle against heavily armoured opponents. Several units are balanced by negative special rules, such as the Samurai's Bushido, which means they can't evade away from the enemy and take cover when the tide of battle turns against them. Also, the Temple Demon's instability means you have to keep a Shugenja close to them if you want them to operate effectively. And finally, the Shogun's special rule means that any blunder you roll is likely to be negative, not positive. You also have no access to magic, so your force multipliers for the army are limited, and you have no ability to re-summon lost demon stands once instability starts to take hold. So what tactics should you employ to beat Nippon? Well, as with all elite armies, artillery works very well against them, and Nippon units simply don't have the high hits and high armour of other races to sustain continued bombardment. Under the same principle, missile attacks and spells will also work well against them. However, beware of the Samurai's special rule, which makes them less susceptible to drivebacks. Your shooting is therefore better targeted at the demon units, as once demon units start to take attrition, instability will finish them off. The Nippon army can field a variety of troop types with very strong profiles, but they don't have access to the best profiles in the game. If you can field heavy infantry yourself, they will beat samurai, and if you can field knights, they will beat samurai cavalry. You can also set up combat traps to catch the samurai units out. Charge the enemy samurai with your own melee units, inflict damage on them, and then withdraw. Do not stay locked in combat. In their own turn, the samurai are then stuck. They don't have the initiative to evade away from you, and it's going to be very difficult for them to receive a successful order to move to safety. Their only option is therefore to re-engage you. And if you're lucky, this will now be on your terms, hopefully with your troops in defendable terrain. Another viable tactic is to use your own mobile units such as Flyers or light cavalry to target the enemy Shugenja. If you move your units into contact with a Shugenja character, the Shugenja has to retreat and join a unit within 30 centimeters. And if you plan this well, you will have reduced the effective dispel range of the Shugenja's special ability, allowing your own wizards free range to cast their spells. In summary, I would describe the Nippon army as potentially very powerful, and in the hands of a skilled player, you certainly have all the tools available to take on and beat any other army. However, the list design is still balanced, with a number of negative special rules, and the points cost erring towards overcosting rather than undercosting. So why not try the Nippon army for yourself? Take up your katana and lead this charge for the honour of the Shogun.